Hello, my friend! It is my pleasure to introduce you to Corinth's temple of Aphrodite. Why, I'm Marcos, of course, one of the most successful merchants in all of Greece. You really haven't heard of me? My name is known from Kefalonia to Kos. If you've ever paid money for something, I probably received a percentage. But enough about me. Let's go back to what you're doing here. It really is a lovely sight, isn't it? The temple, that is, not the ladies. Although they are also lovely. Lovely and lively and, I'm sorry, what were we talking about? In Greece, many love stories were told about the gods. How romantic. Sometimes they were heartwarming and happy, but they often ended in tears, tragedy, and a whole brood of illegitimate children. I'm looking at you, Zeus! Anyway, this tour will introduce you to some of these divine love stories, which may give you perspective on how the Greeks approached love in their own lives. Enjoy your visit, my friend. I'll come see you again when you finish the tour.
Much like Athens, Corinth had its own acropolis, called the Akrokorinth. The natural promontory provided an excellent view of the surrounding territory. It was also the home of several sanctuaries, allegedly constructed in the 6th century BCE. The Akrokorinth's most famous attraction was the Temple of Aphrodite. Pausanias describes it as having statues of Aphrodite, her son Eros, and the sun god Helios. According to Strabo, the temple's most distinguishing feature was its servants, who acted as sacred prostitutes. However, Strabo is the only source for this information, and it is still hotly debated to this day. Love played a large role in countless mythological stories. Zeus himself was not immune to the feeling, and fell for both mortals and other deities. Some myths centered on forbidden feelings that led to tragedy, such as Phaedra's love for her stepson Hippolytus. While marriage was prominent in mythology, it was usually presented as problematic. For example, Aphrodite frequently cheated on her husband Hephaestus. And Medea's resentment against her ex-husband Jason eventually drove her mad enough to murder her children. These less-than-ideal depictions reflected the Greeks' idea of marriage, which they viewed as a civic duty instead of a romantic union.
Την ευήθιαν ταύτην και το πρώτερον, μέληση των χρεών της χείρας. Ουκ ήταν ως υπάρχει, οπότε εις αυτήν δώσουμε το χρέος.
Λέγω ότι καλούμε σε Μάκαρ, Πολιόνιμε, Πυρίπολε και Τελετάρχα, Θεόν Πάτερ και Κυριέ, Σκυπτούχε, Κούρε Τιμάτο, Δημάτων, πατριώκος με οντύχια των κομμών, ελθέ,
Είστε
μάκαρ,
πρελέλην
μίστε
ντόμοι
συμφρίων
γεγονένε
και
φτωχών
χαρημένος εή.
παραδειγματισμού ενεκέν. Έτσι δε η ετοιμότητα των πολιτών πίσω. Σε ώρα καλυμμών, προστασίας, τα τέκνα μου επίπεδα ιστοποίης, και βαρέσαι τα πιστοποίησεις. Ζευραχητή με τα θύματα πολέμων, από όλες των οίκων,
I'm busy right now, my friend. Come talk to me later.
The goddess Aphrodite was one of the mightiest Olympians and was typically associated with love, beauty, and sex. She was worshipped all across the ancient Mediterranean by men and women, both young and old. Her origins differ depending on the version of the story. The poet Hesiod says that she was born from the severed genitals of Uranus, while Homer's version of the myth names her as the daughter of Zeus and Dione. Aphrodite appeared regularly in mythological stories and had many mortal lovers. Her favorite was Adonis, a beautiful boy who died tragically in a hunting accident. Aphrodite was devastated by his death, so she created a cult called the Adonia to commemorate him.
My friend, good to see you again. I bet you were surprised by some of the stories you heard. For a bunch of immortal beings, the gods certainly were saucy, eh? Tell me if there's anything else I can do for you. I'd be happy to. Right this way.
Ποιος εμέ περιπέσει. Άδικον εστί.
Hail, friend, and welcome to Olympia, home of the Olympic Games. I've often dreamed of competing in the games. If my sight was better, my legs and arms were stronger, and my coin purse was fatter. But that is not what the gods want, so I continue making the best of the path they've laid out for me. We're standing in the main section of Olympia, where the Olympic Games themselves took place. Over the course of the festival, athletes competed against each other for prestige and glory to honor themselves and their cities. Enjoy your visit, friend. I'll check in when you're done to make sure you've been paying attention.
The first day of the Olympic Festival began with a swearing-in ceremony for the participating athletes, trainers, and judges. The ceremony took place in front of the altar of Zeus Horkios, or Zeus of the Oath. Athletes would swear that they would follow the Olympic rules, while judges promised to be fair and unbiased. Then the competitions began, starting with a contest between heralds and trumpeters over who would have the privilege of announcing the games. The first day's athletic competitions consisted of wrestling, running, and boxing events for the youngest athletes, aged 12 to 18. The second day began with a grand procession into the Hippodrome to celebrate the start of the popular equestrian events. The most anticipated and spectacular of these was the Quadriga, a four-horse chariot race. Horse racing events were unique in that the winner was not the most skilled jockey, but the owner of the fastest horse or chariot. The Spartan princess Caniska once took advantage of this loophole to skirt the rule that women weren't allowed to compete, and earned 2 Olympic victories in the process. The rule also allowed for occasionally strange results, like in 416 BCE, when the statesman Alcibiades entered 7 chariots into a race and won first, second, and fourth place. After the equestrian competitions, the 40,000 spectators migrated to the stadium to watch the Pentathlon events. When the day's events were over, funeral rites were performed for the hero Pelops, the mythical founder of the Olympic Games. The night ended with a celebratory feast and a great parade in honor of the day's victors.
Όσο η μέτερη απαστασία. Πάψε πάρα πολύ, Στέφα. Τι να σε πάβει τούτο.
Ο ουρανός είναι ως περσπήλαιο. Ίστα.
Παβέ, μείνουν στους όνους μαστιγού. Ακαταπαύστος μαστιγού. Ουέ, μη πει. Εν μουσική, εν ρυθμότινη, άδετε και εργάζεστε. Εξίσταμε του φρονή, συναλλάσσεται στο τέρμα της οδού, μηνύες διογείτονοι.
Victory at the Olympic Games was one of the highest honors a mortal could achieve, and there were several ways to immortalize that honor. Some athletes had statues erected of themselves, while others commissioned poets to write them victory odes. Oral tradition was very important to the Greeks. These odes, called eponychia, were often composed by the finest poets in the land, such as Pindar, Simonides, and Bacchylides. They were usually played at banquets and celebrations attended by the triumphant athlete or upon his departure from Olympia.
Ο πατήρ μου λέγει ότι τη νύχτα έφυγε μια Στella.
Προανάπνη.
The Pentathlon took place at the stadium on the second day. As its name implies, it was made up of 5 events: discus throwing, javelin throwing, jumping, racing, and wrestling. There are several differences between the ancient version of events and their contemporary counterparts. For example, ancient long jumpers held weights in their hands to give them momentum to launch, since there was no run-up before the jump. Similarly, if an athlete won the first 3 events, they were immediately declared the winner, instead of being judged by their overall performance in all 5 events. Running events work the same as they do today, with the notable exception of all the athletes being nude. As for wrestling, competitors were not divided by weight class as they are today, but instead by age. The winner was the first to throw his opponent to the ground 3 times. Day 3 started with the most important event of the festival. A procession of Hellanodikai, ambassadors, competitors, and animals made their way to the great altar in front of the Temple of Zeus. The animals were then offered as the official sacrifice of the festival. The afternoon of Day 3 was dedicated to foot racing events. Running was the oldest event of the Games, and in fact was the only event at the first Olympics. The main race was called the Stadion, which was a sprint of around 180 meters. The winner was granted the honor of lending his name to the 4-year period between the Games. This period was known as the Olympiad. The 4 years that followed the first Games in 776 BCE were known as the Olympiad of Coroebus of Elis, the first Olympic champion. Once all the competitions were over, a public banquet was held in the Prytaneion to celebrate the day's victors.
Ακαταπαύστος, μαστιγού. Δέτε τους πόδα σας. Άπαντες οι φώτες όπισθεν χωρίς.
Ο Έλληνες πολίτε, ολίγιστη ημών ευκαιρία στην χάνουση εν το βίο εις...
Πανάκριβον συντηρητική. Είτε εν μουσική.
Day 4 was mainly for combat events. Wrestling matches were held in the morning, followed by boxing and Pancration. Pancration was a no-holds-barred mix between wrestling and boxing. Almost all moves were permitted, except for biting, poking the eyes or mouth, and striking the genitals. The event was very popular, and it was seen as the ultimate expression of strength and technique. Later on in the afternoon, there was a unique racing event called the Hoplitodromos, or Race in Armor. In this event, competitors wore a helmet and held a shield to simulate running in the battlefield.
Εγώ προγυμνάζω εν ορνήθιον και τι το πάλε προγυμνασίς λιπαρού χείρου είναι μέμνημε του ονόματος του.
The Hellanodikai, or judges of the Greeks, were both the game's adjudicators and their organizers. They hailed from Elis, the city in charge of the sanctuary of Olympia, and new judges were elected each Olympiad. They had several responsibilities. Before the games started, they decided which athletes would be allowed to compete and supervise their training. They also drew lots to make the competition brackets. During the games themselves, they picked the winners and kept an eye out for foul play. For the latter, they were assisted by stick and whip-wielding umpires who stood near the athletes and punished them if they were caught cheating.
παπέ.
Ασχέστε, ο άνδρας δίδιο εξάρτηση και κάλυψε λιμένο τα μόρα.
Victory in Olympia was one of the most prestigious honors in all of Greece. Not only would victors be showered in glory in their home city, but their names would be known across Greece. The temptation to glory led some athletes to break their oath to Zeus and cheat. This could be dangerous, as there were many possible punishments should cheaters be caught. They could be disqualified and fined, or if they were caught cheating during a match, they would be beaten by nearby umpires. The most powerful deterrent of cheating, however, was shame. At the foot of Mount Kronios, and on the way to the stadium, were a group of bronze statues called Zanes, the plural of Zeus. These statues were inscribed with the names of the cheating athletes, how they cheated, and the fine that was imposed. The Zanes, which were funded by cheaters' fines, were strategically placed to be highly visible. Individuals or even entire cities could be found guilty of cheating.
Και σπουδαιοτάτους. Επί των ημερών ημών ο οίκος σου επιβλάβει και πρώτη κλέπωση. Έδινε στον Οβολοστάτη και πουλούσε
Τους είχε φτάσει ή την πληροφορούσε πίσω.
Επί των ημερών ημών ο οίκος σου επιμάλλον απέσπαγε άνευ ποικιλία αντί ολίγων αργύρων. Ποσός οίκος ή, ουχή ο αιμός.
Λέγει ούτως ότι η συμμορία την άτιμη περιοχή του σκαρπάζουσα εκεί βοηθείες και βοφύλακους εξάστιους.
Σκευοφύλαξ. Εννοείς κλέπους ήχους οίκου του ειδικού κατασκευέντες. Ο βιοράσος πικραντικός διατίθεται. Κατεγγύρασαν τον περιβερέων στην κατώσταση. Επιμήτητος φακέλος. Διαστείο το Παναγιώ. Είδατε τον βιωτικό. Ούτως για σταδιοδρόμησε.
Να δίνουμε αποπληρούμενους τόπους. Εξής κάνουμε φρονή. Συναλλάσσεται στο τέρμα του
λέγει ούτως ότι η συμμορία την άλλη περιοχή λιμένεται.
Πάρα και ο Βολοστάτη. Δοκούσι αυτής είναι τραπεζίτας. Δοκούσι αυτής είναι
Τώρα σε εμισφαιρίσιον κενό.
Η αγορά του πληθύσε. Και εκείνος επιθυμεί.
Τι γίγνε!
Τα δεσμέν, πού.
Ναι,
Ούκ έχω το σάφτα χρήματα.
The Prytaneion was the administrative center of the cult of Olympia and the Olympic Games. The building housed the sanctuary's priests as well as the game's officials. It was also used to stage the grand banquet held on the evening of the third day to honor victors. It also had a sacred function. Its central chamber was the location of the fire of Hestia, a sacred flame that burned day and night. This fire was used to light the other altars around the sanctuary. This practice may have partially inspired the modern tradition of carrying the Olympic torch.
Προς επιδείκνυση σατανικά ψευδολογήματα άνευ. Η τραγωδία διαφθείρει τους νέους και ούτε καταμαλθακίζονται. Εκπλήσει, αποφέρεται το Αύριο.
Hello again! I hope you enjoyed your visit. With their spectacular events and lavish banquets, the Olympic Games were a feast for the senses. I am certain even Zeus himself was entertained by the festivities. Now, is there anything else you'd like to do? Very well. Safe travels, my friend.
Και συνάπτει σφιχτός τους δακτύλους του επί το πόλο του κοινού.
Συμμορείτε πληροφορία λαμβάνουν σε διάρκεια και πρώτη πλέον.
Αληθώς και χαριτωμένο. Το πούσε αυτής είναι τραπεζίτας. Το πούσε αυτής ότι γίνανε